welcome back. I'm Dana, and today is part 2 of our head drawing series. In the last video, we went over the general proportions and planes of the head. We're going to continue today with our first deep dive into the facial features, the eyes. Okay, so let's start with the shape of the eye. First, let's get some misconceptions out of the way. What we don't want is a perfectly symmetrical football-shaped eye that you can split horizontally and vertically and get 4 equal parts. Instead, what we want is an asymmetrical eye. So if we look at this example here, what we can see is we want a short curve starting at the tear duct, the upper lid here, into a long curve for the outside of the eye. And on the bottom lid, we want a short curve on the outside coming into a long curve for the inside of the eye. If we look at our example over here, we also don't want to forget to address the crease of the eye. And again, this could vary from person to person, depending on the type and shape of your eyes, how much of your eyelid shows, but everybody will have some sort of crease in their eye. Okay, moving on. So the next thing we want to look at here is a side view of the eye. So another thing we want to avoid is overexposing our eyeball. So if we look at this one here, this example, you can see that the eye is bulging out and we see a lot of the eyeball exposed. But in reality, if your eye looks like that, every time you sneezed, your eyeball would pop right out of your head. So we don't want to expose this much of the eye. Instead, if we look at this example down here, we can see that actually very little of the eye is exposed and most of the eyeball is well within the skull, keeping the eye nice and protected. Another thing we want to think about for the side view, and going along with that whole idea of protecting the eye, is if we put in the idea of our brow ridge here. We have a bone here, socket of the eye, this brow bone here, and with our cheekbone here, it actually creates like a little cradle and protects the eye, and your eye is tucked into the socket here. So we only ever see just a very small fraction of the eye. Next, let's look at the area around the eyes. So if we look at the shape between the eyebrow and the eyelid, here in the corner, it's a concave shape. And that's what creates those deep shadows when the eye is lit from above. Over here on the outside of the eye is a convex shape, which is formed by the bone and the fat below the surface, generally catching the light, also when lit from above. When you're lighting the eye, and you're transitioning between this convex lighter area and this concave shadowy area, it actually creates a diagonal here, allowing for a nice, elegant transition between the light and dark areas. Next, let's talk about lighting the eyes. So here I have a couple different examples. We have a front view over here and a side view over here. All right, so from the front view, if we look at the eyeball, it looks like a perfect circle. Well, maybe not perfect, but a circle. But in actuality, the eyeball, if we look at it from the side here, is not a perfect circle. So there's actually a lot of different parts to the eye, but we're only going to talk about what is really relevant for us as far as lighting. So here's the most important part. This part here that you see sticking out, this is the cornea. And if we imagine the eyeball, or think of it like a camera lens, imagine this is the piece of glass in the front of the camera. All right, and that's where your light is gonna hit first. Now behind that glass or cornea, you have the iris. That's the colored part of your eye. Think of the iris as like the shutter of the camera. And in the center of the iris, there is a hole, and that is the pupil, and that's what lets light into your eye. So depending on how much light the pupil is allowing into the eye, it will dilate, so your pupil can be larger or smaller depending on the amount of light it's letting into the eye. And then behind that is the lens. Okay, so why is that important? So when lighting the eye, this is my light source coming from here. Then this light is gonna hit the cornea first here, creating that hot spot or that bright dot of light that you always see people put in the eyes. And that's why that is here. But the light is gonna continue to pass through the cornea, and then it's gonna hit the iris actually down here. So generally, you have your bright spot from where your light is hitting on the cornea, and that's gonna be in the direction of your light source. And on the opposite side of the iris here, you're also gonna get a reflection of light. And that is where the light passes through the cornea and hits the iris. And so this can change depending on where your light source is. So if your light was coming from this direction, then that hot spot would be here, and then on the opposite side, you would have the brighter part of the iris. So whatever direction your light is coming from, that is where you're going to put your light spot. And then just remember that on the opposite side, on the iris, you're also going to have a little bit of light. Okay, so let's now look at some examples. So let's take all of this and apply it practically. You can practice this by drawing eyes on spheres within perspectives. Keep in mind these are meant to be quick practice sketches. So all you really need is your sphere and your wrapping lines. And where those wrapping lines meet, you can draw your pupil, and you can do these in all different directions. You can also practice different expressions with the eyes. Don't forget to add the eyebrows, that way you can add even more expression to your eyes. So I just did a couple examples for you guys to see. But now let's take everything that we've learned and apply it to our face. So here we have our head from earlier. So we'll start the inner corner with a short curve to a long curve. And then on the lower lid, a short curve to a long curve. We'll add the fold of our eye. Apply what we learned about lighting the eye. So if our light hits here, we'll pop a little bit of light over here. We can create some shadows from our eyelid. And there is our eye applied to our face. Alright guys, well that concludes our tutorial on the eyes. I hope you found this useful and are able to apply these techniques to your artwork. Keep practicing, draw from life and photos. Even if your intention is to create stylized faces, understanding the real forms can only improve your design sensibility. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!